It's one of my favorites. It's very comfy. It's a good color. YouTube. Yeah, Coach Tina B. If you want to check me out on there. Okay. And you can see all of the replays, the lives that I've done. I've uploaded there. And you can also see the artwork that I've put up there as part of the thumbnails. Okay. All right, guys, welcome. Facebook is finally working now. All right, nice. So today we've got a great topic. We're going to go over how to be happy even if you are bored. And this is going to be probably a little bit more of a business-related topics tonight, although I will talk about healing and trauma and doing all those kind of things. So back when I first started, before I get into that, if this is your first time joining in on my channel, my name is Tina. I'm a happiness coach. I help people go from being in a dark place, depressed, anxious, suicidal thoughts, and moving them into a happier place. I do this by sharing my experience, strength, and hope. I tie this stuff to business as well, because even if you yourself have not experienced trauma, I can promise you there's probably somebody on your team that has experienced trauma, and they probably don't look like it, and they may or may not have done some inner work. So you get different reactions, and being aware of this topic can help you create a better work environment, a happier work environment where, and when people are happy, they perform better, they do better. Now, there's arguments both ways, and we're going to cover some of that tonight. So, and go check out my YouTube channel, which is Coach Tina B 125, and you can see all of the lives that I've done so far that I've posted up there, as well as the artwork that I do as part of my art therapy healing journey kind of thing. So tonight I want to talk about being happy even when you're bored, and finding the blessing in mundane activities. Okay, I know it doesn't sound very exciting, does it? But it was when I was at my lowest, these boring activities, these things that were challenging for me, were actually the biggest blessing. Thank you. I've spoken it all my life. Although most people will say that I have an accent, the Canadian one. So thanks, Kitu. So when I was starting out on my healing journey, the company that I had started with, I started there when I was 17. It was in warehouse transportation logistics. And it was a very easy kind of job. So we used to have this stack of bills that I started out on midnight shift, and it took 8 hours of just sorting through all of these bills of lading, and I had to put them in numerical sequence, and it was like very thin kind of Bible paper that they were really long sheets too, and I had to sort those, and so that was a boring 8 hour by myself on midnight shift. That's what I started with in this company. And then I would have to go down to the shipping office, and I'd pick up paperwork to bring back to the office, and I would sort it out there. And that was a pretty boring, routine kind of job, but it was what I needed at the time, because I was also doing a lot of healing work. So that's where I had started, but I also ended up, after we lost the major account, I got shifted from midnight shift to day shift, which was when I was really able to dive into the healing journey, because I was able to start going to all these different support groups, and as well as one-on-one therapy. And one of the things that I really had a knack for is being able to learn things quickly, and oftentimes they would be able to throw me in on an account that I knew nothing about. I'd have no training. Hey, Tina, there's this proprietary system that the client uses. So-and-so didn't show up today. you get to do it. And I'd be like, oh, great, okay. And so I was kind of the one that they'd throw in there, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed problem solving. I enjoyed being able to try and figure things out and not really have a roadmap. And I was really good at being able to create a roadmap so that other people could follow it. So they would throw me on these difficult accounts, and then I'd streamline them, and then I'd put in a process so that they would be cookie cutter, and then they could bring in a temp person and they would be able to follow the process that I had laid out. So somebody off of the street could come in, sit down, do that job, not knowing anything. Why? Because I got thrown into it not knowing anything, and I had to put things together. So that was kind of one of the things that I was really good at, but that was also before I started doing the healing journey, really diving deep into it. When I did start going through the healing, I needed something that was more mundane, more consistent, that didn't take a whole lot of brain power, that I could come in, do the job, and it was easy for me. Most people it was still challenging, but it was easy for me because it was consistent. So, and I remember thinking, I'm bored, should I change jobs? And I had been with this company like 10 years. Started there when I was 17, left there when I was 27. And the last 5 years that I was at that company, I was going through this healing process, and it was really in depth at that time. But it was exactly what I needed, because I was able to have a steady, stable, consistent job that didn't take too much of my brain power, and then I could focus on the healing journey, which actually took a lot of energy. And I was grateful to have that kind of job. At first I was like, I should change, kind of thing, and I should switch things up. So what I remember reading was Marianne Williamson and her book, Return to Love. And I was reading in her book, she talked about having like a temporary job, like in an office somewhere, and that she learned to embrace the zen of it, of just being able to be present, do the job, it's not very taxing, and just enjoying that process. And being able to enjoy wherever we're at in life is actually a really key instrument at being able to become happier. Because I could have been at that job and just miserable and just hating every minute of it because it was so boring, so routine. Instead, I shifted my perspective, and a shift in perspective is basically a miracle. When we see things from a different light and it brings us peace, that is a miracle, right? So shifting my perspective to seeing what I was getting out of being in that situation. So I could have been irritable and discontent from the situation that I was in, or I could be grateful for the fact that I had a steady, reliable income that I didn't have to worry about. It wasn't taxing. I could just go in, put in my hours, and then after work, I could do the harder work, which was growing, learning, understanding all of the stuff about trauma therapy, and I was also on all kinds of service committees and boards, and I think I probably also had a part-time job too, because that's just kind of how I've been since I've been able to work. I just always had to do something else on the side, as well as a full-time job, and then was very active in other things. So for me, having that grace to be able to slow down in a workplace where I could just do the role that I was assigned was something that was very, very healing for me. And once I finished that period, I went to a new company. I finally did leave that company. I went to another company. And part of the reason why I had left that company is because when I was ready for challenge, the problem is I started at that company when I was 17. And everybody saw me as the kid. right? And even though 10 years had gone by and I had learned a lot, did a lot, they still viewed me as the kid. So the chance of being able to get promoted was not very easy, right? You know, so sometimes when you're in a certain environment, it's hard to grow outside of who people already see you as. And I knew that I was capable of so much more. So I went to a headhunter. They found me a job that I went to, and I got thrown in the deep end. So I went from having very easy, coasting along, kind of not having to think too hard about the job so that I could focus on other things, to being thrown into a whole new world of, and a very, very fast-paced, demanding, super challenging clients that I was dealing with, and they were in hot water. Like the only reason they went to the recruiter is because they had waited too long. They were at risk of losing the account, so it was volatile when I got thrown in there. There were people screaming at my desk, slamming their fist on it. I was like, what the heck is going on here? What have I done? What have I jumped into? And so I always remember that experience, because if there's a period, if there's a lull period that you're going through in your life and you're thinking like, I'm bored, I'm depressed, it's like, no, this is happening as a blessing for you at this particular time, and to embrace that and enjoy the mundane of just doing the basics day in, day out. One of the things that has been beneficial for is because when you are in entrepreneurship, yes, there's the excitement. We love the excitement of being able to tackle a new project, a new challenge, and, you know, have to figure all the moving pieces out, and you have to put everything in place, and, you know, there's always some sort of problem to be solved. And that's really exciting, and that can really boost your energy. It can also burn you the fuck out. So the thing is, in order for a business to be successful, you need to be able to do the mundane things. Once you have that process locked in, and it's boring and it works, that's what you have to do over and over and over again. I, however, am not super great at that, because once it becomes routine, I get bored. I need to be thrown into the deep end onto another shit show that needs to be sorted out. Why? Because I love to solve problems. I love being able to figure out the complexities of the systems, the process, the people, what's going on, how to interact, who to interact with, and being able to pull all of those resources together. I really like doing that. But once it becomes routine, I am not the person that should be on that desk. I should not be doing that over the long term, which I was thinking about this today. I'm like, this makes me a very good consultant because you can bring me in for a particular project that you're not happy with the results. So, and I think this is part of why I embrace change management so much, because change management involves coming into a problem that hasn't been able to be solved, that you guys have been trying to work on it. You can't seem to get the results that you're looking for. Everybody's unhappy. You're fighting amongst yourselves. You're at risk of losing a customer or a client, and like, things will get really bad if you don't figure out how to fix it. Normally, companies wait until the last minute. They wait until it's gotten too big. And so then you need somebody like a change management expert to come in and help break down things into smaller pieces, because what it's like is this big ball of knotted lights at Christmas time. Like, you know, think National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where he's got the big ball of that knot of lights. That's kind of what it's like in business when you let things go too long, and now you're not able to fix the problem, right? It's not very easy. Or when you go to try and fix one thing, there's these 20 other things that are causing roadblocks. So being able to bring the people together as a way to break down what is the problem exactly, how do we put processes in place. What do we need to do? First, we need to break things apart of what isn't working and then rebuild it to the way that it needs to be. So going from being at that 10-year job where it was very mundane, steady, consistent, it was good because I needed that time for the healing work that I did throughout my early 20s. And then after that, I jumped into this other career, and I loved and I thrived in that kind of problem-solving, challenging environment. And then, of course, then we lost a major account and things slowed down again. And then that's when I got bored again, and I was like, okay, this is just pretty routine. Like, where's the vision? Where's the purpose? What are we doing here? Like, I don't want to just show up. And the only reason I've lasted so long at companies and had long tenure is because within the companies, I was able to move around to different projects and different challenges and be able to sort those things out. And most of the time I'd spend about 2 years on an account the first year is kind of sorting it out, depending on the size and scope of the account. Some of them were multi-million dollar accounts, and those were the small ones. Towards the end of my corporate career, I think it was 10.3 million that I closed in 2020. Yeah, I think it was 2020. And that was US dollars. I think it was 13 million Canadian. And that was a slow year because nobody wanted to go negotiate freight contracts because they weren't sure what was happening with COVID. And they were just trying to do their best because there was all kinds of supply chain challenges, all kinds of new things that were happening, and we had to jump in with new projects too of trying to source hand sanitizers and toilet paper and all those kind of, because I was working for a grocery retailer at the time. So there were all kinds of challenges that way. And that was a slow year. And that was the first year I ever actually calculated how much revenue I actually brought into the business from the negotiations that I did. Why? Because I was a salary employee. It wasn't a commission-based role. So I just kind of did these things and I didn't recognize the value that I brought to the company. So why I say all of this is because when you learn to become happy with whatever circumstances that you're in, and you can shift your perspective to whether you're in that boring, mundane stage where you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you just like, oh my God, I don't know if I can continue. Finding what you get out of that. So there's a lot of peace. There's a lot of you have more bandwidth for other things, right? If you're just doing the things that you need to do. You can also look for ways to try and improve your current circumstances. So I would often play games with myself because I was bored. So I would try to see how quickly I could get things done. And I would start timing myself of like, oh, it took me this long to process this invoice. I wonder if I could do it faster. And I would check those kind of things. Why? Because I was bored. So those would be things. Or is there a way that I'd go back and I'd revisit SOPs and I'd make sure that they were all up to date and that we hadn't changed anything since the last time it was put in place. And I would create new reports to see if we could get better analytics. So these were all little things that I would do in those slower times of how can I improve on these kind of things. And I found happiness in doing that kind of stuff. And then outside of work, I also found happiness by having a greater sense of variety by taking on odd jobs. So I would, and most of the time they were in sales, which is so funny because I thought I was never really good at sales, but I always did something that was interacting with other people. So I remember one time I did a part-time job. This was back when I was still on midnight. So I finished midnight shift and then I would go, and it was like this, like a coffee truck thing, but it was they called it the basket lady, right? So I was a basket lady. I had this basket full of sandwiches and treats and snacks and like juices and pops and stuff like that, and water. And I would bring these, and I'd go into industrial office areas, and I'd just go from office to office, and I'd show up and I'd have these different meals and sandwiches and stuff like that, because the coffee trucks wouldn't go there because it wasn't cost effective enough for a coffee truck to stop there. They stopped usually at like warehouses and stuff like that, where you can get like 20-30 people that would come out. These smaller offices, it was 5 to 10. And then I would start to get to know what it is that those customers liked, and I would make sure that I brought their favorite things, and I'd make sure that, you know, they were aware of any additional new treats or specials or anything like that. And I just did that for fun, and I got paid part-time for that. And then I would sell things like Avon and Regal and all these other little things as ways of making money. But I don't think I was really doing it for the money, especially Avon and Regal, is because I ended up being my own best customer. So, but I did that kind of stuff just because I like to do the interactions. I like looking at the inventory, seeing what was there, understanding the product knowledge, and being able to communicate that with the people that were looking for those products. Where I sucked, though, I sucked at finding new clients. So going outside of my social circles was a little bit more challenging. That's where I ran into problems. So when I started learning about outbound. Now, the funny thing is I am great with outbound if I'm given a list. I can call and talk to anybody. I can cold call, no problem. That's easy for me. But when I have to decide, well, like, should I talk to this person or should I talk to that person? That's where the anxiety starts coming up for me. Because I don't know if that person is actually interested. Whereas, and oh, I have to share this too. So years ago, one of my first part-time jobs was I had to appointment set for a photography studio that they had these like little tickets. So there was no internet or anything back then. So they had these little tickets, ballots that people would fill out to get a free photograph. And so you would have to call and book an appointment. So there was also no voicemail, so you'd get busy signals. And I know some of the younger people are like, what? You couldn't just leave a voicemail? No, you'd have busy signals, and then you'd also have to, I think some of the phones we were using were rotary dials. Yeah. So I would do that. I would call and I'd book those, and I had fun with that kind of stuff because I would just call and these people filled out a ballot. It was fun. They won a prize, you know, and booking that appointment and confirming that and putting those kind of things in place. I love doing that. The one thing I hated was when I was doing door-to-door vacuum sales. Yeah, I didn't last. One day I figured I was going to end up murdered in somebody's house, because that was just kind of weird. They just kind of dropped us off in an area, and then we had to go offer free rolls of paper towel, and then thanks, free rolls of paper towel, and then do this demonstration on a vacuum. I was excited about the product. I thought this was great. I was able to demonstrate it and everything, and people let me in for weird reasons. So it was like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing this, but I didn't mind it. It was just having to go into a stranger's home. That was kind of where it got uncomfortable. So learning to be happy with the mundane, learning to love being able to solve problems, because when I went from the one company that I was with for 10 years, and then I moved to another company, and then it got really challenging. I look younger than I am, and I'll take that. I used to fight that when I was younger, but I'm very happy with this now. So, um, understanding that problem solving, learning to be happy with whatever, I'm young at heart for sure, whatever challenges that you have on the go, when you're in that busy period where it's just one problem, one shit show after another, embracing that, because that is where the true growth is the times where I've had the biggest amount of challenges. Those are the times that I formed the strongest bonds with the people that I worked with. They were the times that I have great stories to tell because of those challenges. And being able to connect with people, whether that's customers, co-workers, partners, whatever it is, those were the good times, and those are the things that, for me, made life meaningful. I hated it when things were really, really slow. That was hard to slow down. So this period that I have been in, I know the last 2 years have been slower for me because I needed to go through a whole new wave of healing after I had launched my my breakthrough closing, where I wanted to help closers heal past trauma. Now I've expanded that not just to closers, but business owners for a change management perspective, and then also to create this channel so that I can help people understand that you can heal from the trauma that you've been through. You can go through this and find happiness. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to be happy every second of the day. And as you go through your healing journey, there's going to be some dark places that you go through. And it's nice to have somebody that you're tethered to that can help pull you out so you don't sink too far down into the darkness. Because that can be really, really scary sometimes. I know that's been the case for me. Fortunately, I've done this journey many, many times now, and I know how to get myself out. But if this is your first time going through this, I definitely recommend having a therapist as well. But I know for myself, in my own experience, if I had just gone to therapy, that wouldn't have been enough for me. I needed an entire community around me. I needed people that were on the same journey that I could talk to without it being a whole deep dive into the therapy session. You don't have a happy life. Okay, Keto, why do you say that? Is there something in particular that you're struggling with right now? And a lot of the times as we're going through this, it's not so much how do you love yourself. Yeah. That is a really good question. And I typically don't like the whole you have to love yourself. Like, oh, you have to love yourself before anybody else can love you. Yes and no. Okay, so there's some balancing that needs to happen with that. Because how we learn to love ourselves is by the examples that our parents give us to teach us that we are valuable. I unfortunately, although I had some love, I'm not going to say I had none. Despite what I grew up in, there was still love there because I'm still alive. But I wasn't taught to value myself. I wasn't taught that the things I wanted mattered. I was taught that what they wanted mattered more. So, because of that, I didn't learn to figure out what was important enough to me to be able to love myself. I had to learn that in my 20s when I was going through therapy. And that took over 10 years to do that. So loving yourself, for myself, what happened is starting to learn what I liked and what I didn't like, what upset me, what didn't upset me. And starting to bring more of what I liked into my life rather than the things that I didn't. I also had to go through a period of stopping things that did not align with who I wanted to be. So if I see myself as a hard worker and somebody who's really smart, and yet I continue to do things that don't allow me to progress in my career, then I'm going to feel unhappy. I'm not going to feel good about myself. If, you know, your example, I wanted to quit smoking, right? Because it was getting expensive and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the people I was starting to hang around with, they didn't smoke. They didn't like it being around smokers. And the funny thing is, neither did I, but the people that I was around when I started smoking, I ended up having this, well, if you can't beat them, join them. It's like, well, everybody else is smoking, I might as well smoke too. And I got a lot of attention when I started smoking. Thankfully, it was only cigarettes, but I felt like one of the cool kids when I started smoking. And the funny thing is as a kid, I'd always go around and I'd break my mom's cigarette off right at the filter, because she'd light it up and then leave it in the ashtray. Back when I started working full-time, when I was 17, you could still smoke in the offices. So there were ashtrays at your desk. And I hated the smell of cigarette smoke. But I was a smoker at the time because that's what the cool kids did. But then they started putting in the restrictions that you couldn't smoke in the office at the desk. And then they had it, you could only smoke in the bathroom. And then you could only smoke outside and all of those kind of things. So there were changes that were done in gradual stages. So whenever you're making changes, if you do them in smaller chunks, it's easier to adjust to those changes. If you try to do it all at once, you get that backlash effect, and then that becomes a problem. So self-love, a lot of times I didn't want to be smoking, but I continued to smoke. So if I continue to do the thing that I don't want to do, that doesn't align with the person I see myself as, then I'm going to be unhappy. So you can't continue to operate in a way that is incongruent with who you want to be. So every time you do that, you're going to be unhappy. So loving yourself is actually starting to stop doing the things that you know that you don't want to do anymore, and start doing more of the things that you do want to do that align with who it is that you see yourself be. So, for example, say you're single and you want to be in a relationship and you want to have a wife and kids and stuff like that. How do you see yourself living that life? What would your day look like in that perfect, ideal life? And then starting to adapt the behaviors to align with that vision of yourself, right? So for me, that's what self-love is starting to look at what it is that you actually want. What do you think would make you happy? The funny thing is a lot of times what we think will make us happy, by the time we get it, we end up needing something else. Just like when I streamlined a desk and I got all the problems sorted out, I actually enjoyed the process. And it's the process that I found the happiness in. So finding something that you actually enjoy the process of, or shifting your perspective to find a way that you can enjoy that process. Like I did when I was doing the boring work, and I found ways to test myself, to time myself. Can I do this faster? Can I add in more things? Can I streamline this to be better? So I found a way to play with it so that it would make me happy and challenge me at the same time. So I would find those ways. So self-love isn't, going to a spa, although I love going to a spa and stuff like that. It's not like, pampering yourself, although those can be those things. It can be as simple as making sure you get enough rest. It can be drinking enough water. It can be not doing the thing that you get upset about if you do that thing. Yeah, we'll have to settle for online, Kitu. I appreciate the offer though, but maybe one day there's an event or something. But in the meantime, work on something like that, of what it is that you can bring into your life today to start aligning with who it is that you want to be. So if you're not happy in the job that you're doing, and you want to be able to do something else, and you think, oh, but I can't do that because I don't have this thing, right? So I did that for many years. It's like, well, I can't go get a new job because I don't have the credentials that they're looking for. Well, gee, dumbass, how the hell would you get those credentials? You have to, it's like, okay, do you actually really want that? Or I'm in Wasaga Beach. So you're in the Toronto area, Kitu? So, I remember I was complaining to a friend of mine, and she was like, I was complaining over and over. It was an ongoing thing of like, I couldn't do this and I wasn't good enough for that because I hadn't finished. Like, I got that job when I was 17. I was a high school dropout. And I felt stuck there because I hadn't completed my high school, and everything at that time required high school. And, I was like, oh, well, this is all I can do, right? So, and funny enough, she was a high school teacher, and she'd be like, okay, Tina, you can either go back and finish what it is that you need to do to complete your GED, and here's the things, or you can just accept that you didn't complete high school. And I'm like, well, I don't want to accept that I didn't complete high school because it didn't align with my version of, I saw myself as smart because I was an honorable student. And it was because of the trauma and the circumstances that were going on at home that I left school, because I did the can't beat them, might as well join them, because all of my family they only valued you if you actually worked and made money. Oh, that's a cool little insight that I just got there. Oh, I'm going to have to dig a little deeper into that little piece, because I think there's probably some connections there. Because I was doing a lot of reflection today, and I know before I used to base my value of who I am based on how well I was doing in my career, how much money I made, and did I get that promotion, all those kind of things. And there is huge value at doing that kind of stuff and being productive, being a productive, successful member of society. That's awesome. But in our whole, we are all deserving of love and value and just being appreciative of who we are right now, even with all our messed up shit. Okay? That doesn't mean sit in that and stay there. It means you can change, but you don't have to be perfect to receive love and validation. That's not required. You exist, therefore you deserve basic decency. Doesn't mean don't fix the shit that's broken within you. That's not what I'm saying. Because that would actually cause a great deal of unhappiness. Because to allow somebody to sit in something where they're just being mediocre and they know that they can do more, they know they want more for themselves and they're not doing it, allowing them to sit in that is not loving. That's not kind. And usually it's a selfish motivation to hold somebody back, because you can't hold somebody back. You can't hold somebody down unless you get down in the dirt with them, right? So never try to hold somebody back from something, and if you're the one that's holding you back, you have to hold yourself accountable to that. You have to admit, maybe I'm not doing what I need to be doing. That being said, there's these transition periods that you go through where the thing that you thought that you wanted, you may have to let go of that idea in order to allow something bigger to come into your life. And that can be really scary because sometimes that's unknown, which means you have to go and explore, you have to try a few different things. And because I know for me, for the longest time, I was like, well, I don't know what I could do. Like, and I wanted somebody else to tell me what to do. And it's like, well, no, you have to expand your horizon. You have to expand what's possible for you. And when you start to see what's possible, then you can make a different decision of what is it that, what would I truly want? So sometimes it's like, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince kind of thing, right? That kind of scenario. And it's the same thing, whether it's career or anything else, you have to find out what you don't like to be able to kind of go, okay, I definitely did not like that experience. I don't want to do that. Let's try something else. And it's like, oh, okay, I do like this, or I like components of this. How can I find the best of the things that I'm looking for in one particular thing, right? So, or one or two. Going beyond two, you spread yourself too thin. Even two sometimes is a bit much, depending on your skill level and what you're able to stack on top. So the more of a stronger base that you have in your skills, the more you're able to stack on, and maybe you can multitask. Women are typically better at that than men. I think I saw Gary Breckard did I think it was an Instagram post where he was showing some scientific studies that women are actually able to multitask. I'm like, that actually makes sense. Men typically need like a list, give me the checklist of what I need to follow. And women are just kind of like, they look at the situation and then they just start doing stuff. So that's not all women, that's not all men. I'm just generalizing, okay? So guys, whatever it is that you're doing, understand that you will need to have some consistency with it. Know whether you're in that search and trial mode, or if you're in that, okay, I think I have an understanding of which direction that I'm going to go, and then you start dialing in, and then you have to start saying no to the other things. And that's not always easy to do, right? So, and what I found helped for me is being able to say, it's not a no forever, it's a no for now. I need to focus on this when I get this thing completed, or when I get enough skill under my belt that this is now mundane, then I can look at taking on this other piece and putting it in. Okay? So hopefully that kind of helps answer some of the question of the self-love is more of stopping the things that you know that you're doing that are actually harming you, and then starting doing more of the things that actually bring happiness and joy into your life, right? And to not be hard on yourself as you change through that process, because the bigger the change, if you bite off too much, yes, some people can do that, and they're better just throw them in, kind of like, throwing me in on a desk where there's no instructions. Here's a system, we don't know how it works, the person that's uses it isn't here, figure it out. I'm like, okay. So it's like I did that, and I called people and I talked to them and I asked them for help and figured stuff out, and I got things sorted out. Were there mistakes made? Yes. Was it catastrophic? No. So learning as you're going through this, being gentle with yourself for the mistakes that you're going to make. They will be guaranteed. You will mess things up. You will make a lot of mistakes, and know that as long as you're learning from each one, as long as you're understanding what can I do better for the next time, how can I improve this, how can I have that, constant need for improvement is the best way to be, right? So, and how I overcome some of that perfectionism, because I strive for excellence, but I can also get a little bit too stuck on things, and I will get stuck in trying to do things perfect, And so sometimes I have to allow myself, I'll tell myself it's okay to do it half-assed. Now my half-assed is probably somebody else's 80 or 90%. So not always, depends on where I'm at, you know. So I learn things new and I screw them up, and usually I screw up a lot in the beginning and then I learn very quickly afterwards because I don't like messing up. So yeah, those are the kinds of things that I found for me, rather than trying to do the, you know, oh, I'm going to go for a spa or hair day or any of those kind of things. Sometimes I see those, it's like, okay, those are just necessary maintenance. And if I have things that are on the go, forcing myself to slow down for those kind of things kind of seems annoying. But taking care of yourself in smaller ways are the better ways to do that. Sleep, proper food, nutrition, water, I think are the biggest ways. That gives you at least a strong enough base to decide, am I actually really unhappy, or am I just doing things that I don't actually want to be doing? And you have two choices there. You can either shift your perspective about the thing that you're doing, or you can decide that I don't actually want this, it's pissing me off, and no matter what I try to put in place, I'm still pissed off about it. Therefore, I need to change something. So it can be a little bit of a trial and error as you're going through this, because you don't want to just automatically cut things off because, you know, you're irritated about something. It's like, well, no, because sometimes you're missing information or you're not seeing it from the correct perspective. So a lot of times we have to go through this process of understanding, is this something I need to cut off, or is this something I need to look at differently? So those are challenges, whether you're in business or in your personal life, your healing journey, whatever it is that you're doing, of trying to find that middle ground. And more times than not, we're going to make mistakes on that. We're going to go, oh, you know what, I maybe overshot on that, maybe I cut that off too quickly, be a little bit more diplomatic next time. So it's kind of like you find your right and left lateral limits, I guess, is what they often call it. So being consistent, finding ways to solve problems, and looking at things from a different perspective often will bring a whole lot more happiness into your life, into your business, and whatever it is that you're doing, wherever you're at on your healing journey. So, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here tonight. Kidu, thank you for all the questions, the interactions. I really do appreciate you. Mark, it's good to see you again. I see that you joined the live there, so good to see you. Anyway, guys, you can check the replay. Will be uploaded on my YouTube channel, Coach Tina B 125. Go check it out. Make sure you like, subscribe. Helps boost the algorithm. Helps me help other people be able to hear that. Have a good night, Kidu. All right, guys. Have a good night, and we will talk to you tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. Take care. Bye.